welcome back to another video. Before we get into this content, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel and stay updated with our latest content. Now in this segment, we're going to learn on how to determine if a power supply is dead on arrival, or DOA for short. We're going to show you some quick steps that you can take before determining that the power supply is defective. This is going to save you a ton of time, so let's go. Okay, the first step we need to do here is, and we always recommend, is to always take a look visually and make a visual inspection of the power supply. And the intention here is that you want to check for any physical signs of damage. And what we're looking for is any bent or broken pins, loose connections, burn marks that you may notice, any visual damage that you could see. This would be an indication that the power supply is faulty or it has been used previously. Now the second thing is to please check the protection modes that the power supply has in its feature set. These can be found on the power supply specification datasheet. And some of these protection modes can actually be misinterpreted for a power supply failure. So it'd be best here to take a multimeter. This is going to be an invaluable asset to you, where you can actually do some of this troubleshooting on these power supply related issues. And here's a for instance. You may want to use that multimeter to measure the output voltage of the power supply to check if it's even there or present, and what the potential or voltage value should be. Now, if there's no voltage present, we would move on to the next troubleshooting technique. And here we need to verify, do we even have an AC input coming into the supply? And then, and here is a note here. You must proceed here with caution, because now you're dealing with some high voltages. So make sure you know exactly where to put those probes and measure carefully. Utilize that AC voltmeter now, put it in AC mode that we talked about before, to measure the input voltage and verify that it's within the operating range of the power supply. Now the input voltage range of the power supply can be found in the spec sheet, or even on the faceplate of the power supply label. If the power supply has an input voltage switch, which is less common, please ensure that the switch is set to the correct input voltage setting. If the switch is in the incorrect position, let's correct it now and make sure we have the right setting in place. Now, power supplies with these switches are commonly going to ship at 230 volts. And the reason why we do that is to make sure that you're shipping at 230 volts, so that in case you plug it into 230 volts, you're not going to get a failure. But if you plug it into 120 volts, the supply would either work, but when you load it, it would stop working or not work at all. So make sure that that switch is set properly. Now the fourth step is to check some of the features of the power supply. Some power supplies will have what we call a remote on-off or inhibit functionality, and this is a feature that allows for the output of the power supply to be remotely turned on or off without requiring you to go and disconnect the AC input. And it is critical to ensure that the output of the power supply is enabled so that the output would be present. Now, some power supplies actually ship with a jumper or a small wire to bridge the connection to control this function. Additional details as to how your specific supply would behave with remote on-off functionality would be either on the datasheet or an operating manual of the power supply. All right, the fifth step is to check if the power supply has any diagnostic LED indicators. These would be great, because checking for those indicators, you're going to be able to find out if there's any error codes, if the lights are on, if there's any error sequences that can clue you in to the output of the power supply, whether it's present or operating normally. Now, different power supplies have different coloring indicators and patterns, and an LED turning from green to yellow or red and repeating could be a sign of a fully charged state. Okay, so if all of these items check out, review the power supply documentation and spec sheets. If your supply still fails to respond after running through these quick troubleshooting procedures, we can be certain that the power supply is dead on arrival. You now have all the necessary information to communicate with the supplier for a return. Hey, if you found this content helpful, make sure you hit our like button, subscribe to our channel, and put some comments in that chat. We love to hear your feedback. We're going to read all of that feedback and make sure that you stay plugged in for our next episode.